What if I told you there's a farmer in Minnesota who makes more money filming himself planting corn than actually selling it? Zach Johnson didn't set out to become a YouTube star. He just wanted to clear up some lies about farming. But what happened next turned a fifth-generation family operation into something nobody saw coming. Behind the camera is a business empire worth millions, a racing hobby that costs more than most people's salaries, and a family legacy that's been hanging by a thread for over 150 years. The Millennial Farmer story isn't just about agriculture. Let's start with how this whole thing began, because it wasn't supposed to be a business at all. In April 2016, Zach grabbed his phone, set it on a dusty oil drum in his shed, and recorded his first video. No fancy equipment, no script. Just a frustrated farmer who was tired of seeing garbage online about GMOs and pesticides. He wanted people to understand what actually happens on a farm, straight from someone who gets dirt under his fingernails every single day. For over a year, barely anyone watched. His wife Becky thought it was a nice hobby. His dad probably thought he was wasting time. Then came harvest season in 2017. A 40,000-pound tractor sank nose first into mud so deep it couldn't reverse out. Most farmers would have seen this as an expensive nightmare. Zach saw it differently. He grabbed rope, chains, and his camera. That tractor stuck in the mud video hit 3.2 million views, and everything changed overnight. Suddenly, this wasn't a hobby anymore. People weren't just curious about farming. They were obsessed with watching this Minnesota guy solve problems in real time. The video earned him $92, and he thought that was insane. That was just the beginning. Here's the part that'll mess with your head. By 2018, just 2 years after starting, Zach and Becky were making 5 times more money from YouTube than from actual farming. Let that sink in. A man whose family has worked the same land since 1868, over 150 years of planting and harvesting, was suddenly earning more by talking about farming than doing it. His Swedish immigrant ancestors came to western Minnesota with nothing and built a 160-acre homestead by 1876. That farm survived the Great Depression, the farming crisis of the 1980s, droughts, floods, and every economic disaster you can name. 6 generations of Johnsons kept it alive. And now the guy running it makes his real money from Google AdSense. The wild part? That YouTube income might be the only reason the farm still exists. Zach's been open about this. Some years farming loses money. The weather doesn't cooperate, crop prices tank, equipment breaks down at the worst possible time. Those are the years when most family farms go under. But Zach had a safety net nobody in his family ever had before. He uses the YouTube money for living expenses and pours the farm income back into operations. Social media is literally keeping a 6th-generation farm alive. Now here's where it gets interesting, because farming and YouTube weren't enough. In 2022, Zach and 3 partners bought the Alexandria Shooting Park in Minnesota. Yeah, the wholesome farmer guy who talks about soybeans also owns a shooting range. Turns out he's been a weapons enthusiast this whole time. One of his partners owns Alex Pro Firearms, an AR manufacturer. Another is a professional trick shooter. They saw an opportunity and grabbed it. Zach doesn't talk about this much on the main channel because it doesn't exactly fit the family-friendly farm vibe, but it's there. A whole other business venture that most of his million subscribers probably don't even know about. And it doesn't stop there. He's got a second YouTube channel called Between the Rows that's mostly about racing, because apparently farming and filming and owning a shooting park wasn't enough to fill the schedule. Zach races cars, like actually races them competitively. He's building a second trailer right now, so he and his 14-year-old son, Onyx, can haul both their race cars to events. The racing hobby costs a fortune, so he's using that second channel to help fund it. His son's already behind the wheel, and Zach's betting people will want to watch a teenager evolve from rookie to serious competitor. Think about what his day actually looks like. He wakes up, works a 2,400-acre farm with his dad, films content for the main channel, edits videos with Becky, manages sponsorship deals with companies like John Deere and WD-40, runs a shooting park business, plans racing events, and somehow still finds time to record a podcast called Off the Husk. Most people can barely handle one full-time job. This guy's juggling 5. His wife had to quit her daycare job just to keep up with the Millennial Farmer brand full-time. They launched a merch line that sold 2,000 pieces in 6 days. The t-shirts and hats kept flying off the virtual shelves. Estimates put his YouTube ad revenue alone at around $290,000 a year. And that's before you count sponsorships, merch, speaking fees, and everything else. Both Zach and Becky grew up poor in rural Minnesota. Now, they're running a media empire that generates more income than most small businesses. The farm they're working is the same one his ancestors started with barely anything. They went from struggling to survive to building multiple revenue streams most people couldn't even imagine. And they did it all while keeping tractors running and crops growing. But here's the thing nobody talks about. The most popular video on his channel isn't some high production piece about modern agriculture. It's not a sponsored post or a carefully planned series. It's his 10-year-old son Onyx driving a grain cart. That video pulled 1.4 million views. People didn't tune in for the farming education. They wanted to see a kid doing something most adults would be terrified to try. Another massive hit? Moving snow as slowly as possible. A sarcastic title about his broken tractor that somehow resonated with hundreds of thousands of people. Then there's A Long Day of Planting Corn and First Day of Corn Harvest 2018. These titles don't scream viral content. They're plain, straightforward, almost boring. But that's exactly why they work. The algorithm doesn't care about production value or strategy. It cares about authenticity, and Zach's got that in spades. People have compared watching his videos to Bob Ross painting or ASMR. There's something calming about watching someone who genuinely loves what they do. Even when things go wrong, the even-keeled narration, the problem-solving, the realness of it all, that's what keeps people coming back. Viewers aren't looking for excitement. They're looking for something genuine in a world full of fake. Critics will say he got lucky. One viral video and boom, instant success. But luck doesn't build what he's built. Since 2016, he's uploaded over 700 videos. That's years of waking up before dawn, filming in sub-zero Minnesota winters, explaining the same concept over and over to people who've never set foot on a farm. He defended GMOs when everyone online was trashing them. He showed people why farmers use pesticides and drain tiles, knowing he'd get hate for it. He tackled controversial topics head-on, explaining irrigation, genetically modified seeds, and herbicides like Roundup while the internet was losing its mind over them. Most people would have backed away from that fight. Zach leaned into it. He put his family in front of the camera, his wife, his 3 kids Onyx, Rhiannon, and Isla, his dad Nate, even the farmhand Jim, and let strangers into the most intimate parts of his life. They launched the Between the Rows channel in December to show even more family content because people were begging for it. That's not luck. That's commitment. Every single video is a risk. Every opinion he shares could backfire. But he keeps showing up, keeps being honest, and keeps letting people see the real side of farming. And while he's been building this empire, he hasn't forgotten where he came from. In 2020, Zach and Becky started a nonprofit called Harvest Outreach. They've raised over $65,000 to train first responders on grain bin rescues. Farmers die in grain bins every year because rescue teams don't know how to safely extract someone who's been buried. Zach used his platform to change that. He's also partnered with Farm Rescue, an organization that helps farmers who can't work their land due to injury or illness. In 2022, he volunteered for his first farm rescue case in Raymond, Minnesota, and he's been raising awareness on his channel ever since. The nonprofit also partnered with Anderson Bash to award college scholarships to students going into agriculture. He's making serious money, but he's putting it back into the community that raised him. He's using his astronomical reach, his words, to shine a light on issues that matter. Grain bin safety, mental health in farming, supporting families when disaster strikes. Most influencers at his level are focused on growing bigger. Zach's focused on making sure the people around him don't get left behind. That's the difference between someone chasing fame and someone who actually cares. So where does this all lead? Right now, Zach's sitting at over 1.1 million subscribers with more than 350 million lifetime views. He's one of YouTube's biggest farming personalities, maybe the biggest. The platform even named him a star of FarmTube in an official report. He gets recognized at farm shows and ag expos. He's been on national news. He's moderating panels about artificial intelligence in agriculture. A fifth-generation farmer from rural Minnesota is now speaking at tech conferences about the future of farming. His ancestors would have never believed it. But here's what keeps this story from being a simple success tale. Farming is still brutal. The markets are unpredictable. The weather doesn't care about your YouTube metrics. Equipment breaks, crops fail. Every single year is a gamble, and Zach's family has been rolling those dice for over a century and a half. The difference now is that he's hedged his bets in a way nobody in his lineage could have imagined. He's taken a profession that was dying, small family farms are disappearing across America, and found a way to make it sustainable by doing something completely different. He turned transparency into a business model and authenticity into currency. The American farmer used to be this mythical figure. Quiet, humble, works the land from sunup to sundown, doesn't ask for much. Zach Johnson kept all of that, but added a GoPro and an internet connection. Same dirt his great-great-great-grandfather worked. Same tractors breaking down at the worst possible times. Same pressure to keep a legacy alive. But now there's cameras, sponsors, merch drops, a shooting park, race cars, and a non-profit. Saving lives. He's juggling more than most people could handle in a lifetime, and somehow he's making it all work. His wife quit her job to run the brand. His kids are growing up on camera. His dad's watching the family farm transform into something none of them expected. Zach's proof that you don't have to choose between honoring tradition and building something completely new. Sometimes the best way to save what matters is to show the world why it matters in the first place. He took a dying profession and gave it a megaphone. And in doing so, he didn't just save his family's farm. He gave an entire generation a reason to care about where their food comes from.